welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
There's no surer foundation for beautiful friendship than a mutual taste in literature.
I'm Ian Woodworth, and I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we have a special guest with us, Kate from the Of Mice and Men and Monsters podcast. Kate, welcome to Undercommon Taste.
Hi.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
Sorry, your camera just froze up for a second, but you're caught up now. So
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It was just making sure you're paying attention. That's it. Or you
Exactly.
could be like one of the students last year that would like have the freeze frame, and then you think something's wrong, and then they just go to McDonald's. But I am here, and I'm
If
ready.
you're going to do it. I still want that weird cat filter that lawyer had last year. I am not a cat. What? I'm a tabaxi. What?
What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So, Kate, can you give us a little bit about you and about your podcast?
Sure. Yeah, a little bit about me personally. I am a high school English teacher. I've been teaching for about 12 years. And Of Mice and Men and Monsters, OMAMAM, came about when my husband Adam, who is both a voice actor on the show as well as the latter half of all of our production, so editing and making sure it sounds tip-top shape and all that, and posting. Both of us just wanted to create something together, especially during COVID, during the quarantine times when we're stuck inside. And we had a couple other friends who were down to do this crazy venture with us. And here we are. But the premise is that something I love and know very well, classic literature, having studied it for many years and now teaching it as well, we wanted to combine that with another nerdy thing we love, tabletop role-playing games. So we put it together, especially when you realize, hey, there's a lot of stuff that's old enough to use. There are stories, there are poetry, there's musicals, there's short stories, there's essays, there's novels, there's so many things that are in public domain that we can then use and adapt for a podcast where people play Dungeons and Dragons. So that's how it came together.
And
That's really awesome.
And full disclosure, I have listened to this podcast. I am up to date on this podcast.
Woohoo.
So
Yeah. you know what's coming.
oh yes,
Oh, my.
at least I hope I know.
Literary hints.
I hope I know what's coming.
Okay. Oh well, I promise no spoilies tonight.
Okay.
Just little tidbits, little hints that maybe draw you in. That's it.
That's always good. A nice little tease. I like it.
Yeah.
So I still think that my favorite line, and I can say this without spoiling anything, is, "Hey, Mr. Bertram, a bippity boppity boo."
It's fun when they get to play with it too.
Yeah,
And then you
it's
have
great.
cross genres going all over the place.
Mhm.
So yeah, I will make sure to tell Aaron that. He's probably going to be watching tonight. Our buddy Aaron, who plays Awen on the show.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, Awen is just such a great weird character. It's he's almost normal. That's the thing, is he's
That's the best kind of
almost
character.
normal, and then the weird thing with the teeth.
Yes, and that just came out of nowhere. And so one of their first encounters they had, he just decided to
Start pulling
take
teeth.
take this dwarf's teeth, this halfling's teeth. I forget which one. 'Cause
I think it was a
have both of
halfling,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, and then he was taking their teeth, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't know. You can make something out of it. Pop a villain or have like a fake cap." And I'm like, "Go for it. You
Yeah.
be as weird as you want, because here it actually works."
Yeah.
Yeah, we.
And this is how you get tooth fairies, boys and girls.
And then you get emails from people saying, "Hey, I found a dice set with teeth in it." It's like,
Oh.
oh okay.
Oh, my.
This is amazing.
And then there is a dice set that I have seen before that you can get that is made from teeth. Like
Made from teeth.
Yes.
Oh, them polished ivories. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm seeing some scrimshaw stuff, but I don't know. That's a little bit.
It's a little bit macabre. I don't know as if I
A
would
little
play.
bit.
I don't know as if I would play with actual teeth.
I don't know, but that's a great flex to pull out if you're with
Yeah.
people and you're like, how do you
Oh,
like
especially
my
if you have like
how do you like my new
unarmed bite
set?
damage.
Oh my
I'm gonna bring
yes.
out the teeth dice for my bite damage.
Yeah, my lizard folk,
Yes.
roll my d6.
Definitely. Piercing damage, crushing damage. You're like, this
Love it.
D20, straight up molar.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into the actual topical part of the episode, because that is what we invited you on for, is to talk a little bit about taking literary works and adapting them for the table. So,
I love this idea. That's such a wonderful idea you had. I mean, wow.
Thank you. Thank you. It's just we were like, man, we want to do this. But what's something that could potentially set us apart? Just, something that
right.
it feels more ours, that we could take ownership of it. And yeah, just looking at what I do for a living and what I get to nerd over on a regular basis, and what I own so much of that now my own classroom has become a room of requirement for our books. It's just like, we're running out of room. Just we don't have any more room in the apartment. Just shove it in the classroom. So yeah, it was fun to be able to do that.
All right. So the first question we have on our list is, what is your process for finding literary work to adapt for your game? Do you go in looking for a story to fit the narrative that you're wanting to tell, or do you form your narrative around a story that has particularly compelling elements?
When I first started dungeon mastering, when I first, dipped my toe in, as it were, and it was well before of Mice and Men and Monsters, that was the first place I thought to go. And so I was like, man, what do I nerd out over? What's something that I can know enough on the back of my hand that I could just create something around it? And so I went with Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe,
Very
and made
nice.
it into a murder mystery. And that was driven more by personal interest and knowledge. And so if you ever want to try it yourself, definitely go for the stories that you know so well, and the characters that you would love to just have as the menacing antagonists, and the side characters that are just coming in through the window. But for Of Mice and Men and Monsters, my husband and I, we worked together first to kind of create, like, what are some broad strokes for this world, and kind of what's the direction we want to go in. And then that's all I let him see, because he's a player, and I want him to still have that element of surprise and having fun with it, as opposed to knowing everything that's going to happen. And so my job is to find stories that reflect the characters. So when they were building their characters, I asked them to tell me what either genre or stories they were basing their character off of. So for Penny, we just wrapped up in recording. We just finally wrapped up Oliver Twist, and so that is the kind of the world that she was building Penny off of, as a street urchin and being raised by the antagonist Fagin. And so that was easy, knowing, okay, I'm going to put this in here at some point. Awen, is based off of the transcendentalist movement, kind of just getting all crunchy and into nature, and some just off the wall ideas for how to live your life, as you see in him. And then Adams is loosely based off of a collection of gothic short stories, and then also the time machine. So knowing, like, we're eventually going to build these in there, and that'll be character driven. But furthermore, what are some fun stories that allow us to explore themes that take different viewpoints on good and evil and world building? So it's a mix, I guess. That's the best way I can put it to you. It's a hybrid. You come in knowing, I definitely want to do these stories. I definitely know I want to do Moby Dick because I want to try an adventure all set at sea, as just a personal challenge. But then also keeping in mind, my characters are basing their own backstories on these pieces of literature. So to help them develop, I need to weave that into the overall narrative, the big arc, as it were, as well.
Okay.
Gotcha. That's a wonderful bit of storytelling and world building. I mean, that's being able to take the different stories and kind of meld them together. that takes a lot of work. So I mean, well done for being able to pull that off.
Thanks. I get to do a lot of reading, and at least for me, I get excited about that. And I know
Oh yeah.
it's not the case for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's one of our goals from this. One of our like mission statements is if we can get at least one person for each of the novels and short stories and other things that we cover, if they could read it of their own volition, like, hey, that was kind of a fun ride. I want to see what the source material is like.
That would be great.
Oh, I would be so happy. So yeah, it's fun to. There's so much to choose from. Sometimes it's overload. Like you go into Cheesecake Factory and you're like, can I just like bring my D20 in and just choose something off of that?
I've seen that episode.
Yeah, there is. There's an episode of that.
So I'm gonna geek out a little bit right here, but like the way you're kind of talking about wanting to introduce people to stories. It's one of his lesser known books, but Mark of the Beast by Heinlein. Have you by chance read that one?
No, I have not.
No. It was really interesting. It wasn't one of his later books, I don't think, but they make this device and they basically get to teleport their characters into the various literary worlds, and adventures happen, but there's several stories he visits by various authors. He visits Oz. He visits some books by Cornell, who was a pulp sci-fi writer. I think, if I recall, there was Arthur C. Clarke was one. But again, this has that same feel, except just with D&D characters, where you're teleporting your characters into different literary scenarios that they have to figure it and work their way through. But that book stood with me for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. I'm adding that to my list. I'm adding that to my ever-growing list.
Number of the Beast. I'm sorry, not Mark.
Number. Okay. I mean, and also anybody who's listening to this, watching it live or anything, if you have any suggestions that you would like to see as well, shout it out on there. I'm always looking for more ideas. In fact, quite a few people have suggested work that we're going to be the next big work that we're going to be doing, which is The Great Gatsby. And so because we got a lot of people suggesting, I'm like, what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's try this out.
Yeah, because it just recently came into public domain.
Yeah.
And just like in the last 3 years, 2-3 years?
Yeah.
Is it 2018, 2019, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because my wife and I are part of the local theater guild, and that meant that we could actually put on a play adaptation of The Great Gatsby.
Ooh.
Because it was in public domain, so it was no longer a we didn't have to worry so much about the copyright issues.
Mm-hmm.
So,
by the way, I'm so glad that you guys said public domain first before me, or maybe it was in like the notes before this, because I forget that phrase all the time. If you listen to the uncut version of me recording kind of the thank you for listening and here's all this stuff, you'll hear me say open licensing, you'll hear me just come up with all these different phrases, and then you'll hear out in the background, it's public domain. I'm like, shit. Yes, public domain. I thank God for that. And then the recent one, right, Winnie the Pooh, that came out, and of course got a slew of texts from friends, but also seeing stuff online of like, you gotta do Pooh. It's like, oh, how do you how do you do that? And I mean, it can happen, but
it's just a happy werebear.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, totally. The 100-acre woods is 100 acre. Yeah, 100 acre woods. Is totally a Druid's domain.
Oh,
it's totally a grove.
And then the ooze there, instead it's a golden ooze, and it's happy and friendly, aka honey. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no, I like it. And then a bunch of
he has this kid werebore friend, his piglet.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God! Yes, it's just like a mini werebore.
Yeah, it's just a druid's grove full of lycanthropes.
Well, Owl's totally like a wizard's familiar. The wizard's just off.
He's an owlbear. He's an owlbear.
I could see that. A little hard to sit up in a tree, but yeah, I could see that.
Climb.
It'd be a beefy tree.
That would. Just a whole fortress up there. Oh,
yeah, just a drop bear.
Look at all of you guys. You guys are helping me come up with some ideas tonight.
Oh, we love brainstorming.
We're full of ideas. That's all we do. We rattle on for 2 hours about ideas.
And I know I like that about you guys.
So if someone was going to look and try to do this, how would they go about finding what is and what is not public domain? I mean, that would be kind of a big step if, hey, we're going to produce this, but we want to make sure we're safe and covered.
My primary source for finding that has been Project Gutenberg. So I think it's gutenberg.org, if I'm not mistaken. But they have just the complete listing of current, up-to-date public domain works, and then they even offer it to you in many different formats, depending on the device you're on or how you want to read it. And so that has been super helpful. Even just going by author in there, I'm like, what exactly is available to me right now? And so many different genres. So it's not just short stories. It's not just even fiction. They even have nonfiction pieces that are great to use as well, that you can gain ideas. I mean, imagine doing one where you're basing it off of Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain speech.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But yeah, that's primarily where I go to find.
Yes, it is Gutenberg.org.
Awesome. Do we want to put a link to that with show notes later on?
Yeah, we can put,
I guess.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
That's a great resource to just have. I mean, anybody's watching. I mean, resources are wonderful.
Yeah. All right. So how do you adapt your story if and when the players go off script?
Oh, you mean every time we play? For anyone who's ever Dungeon Master, my best laid plans. Modular planning has been helpful, where I have certain just like bullet points of things that I know I want to happen to fulfill our particular group's goals, for the story, but also, hey, this occurs in this world and I would love to bring it in. So it's like, hey, they want to go in this different room, or they want to like set this thing on fire. That's okay. Them finding this important NPC or this big piece of evidence is going to happen anyways. But it's less railroading and be like, let's work with where you want to go with this. During one of our recordings for, I remember during one of our recordings for Count of Monte Cristo, I'm designing this prison, and there's lots of places for them to go, and they just decided they wanted to torch a room, like just not even, not even really explore it fully. And I realized, I'm like, man, I had some things that were set here for them to find out. That's okay. In another room they decided to go into, they met an NPC from the world of Count of Monte Cristo that is still alive and well, and is still with them, available to talk to. And so instead I gave that information for her to impart to them. So it's been more of a, I know you are going to do things, and I encourage you to, because that actually is some of the best moments that have come out of it, especially when they fail those moments. Either they fail the role, or they just go off on this wacky thing, and then we're 10 minutes into it and you hear usually Aaron saying, what have I done? It's like, well, that's fine. Like we're still going with it, and I still have it in my notes, and I can just transfer that. I can transfer that object, I can transfer that character, I can transfer that plot point to a different room or a different moment as well.
And that is a very important little DM trick to learn. I mean, it took me a long time to figure out that the players have no idea what I have planned behind the screen, and they have no idea where all of my little set pieces actually are. So if they turn right instead of left, I can just make this room shift down that hallway instead.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's amazing. It's amazing how it happens. And they're like, wow, we really got it. I'm like, I know, you guys are so smart. So cunning.
That's like the old magician's trick where you have someone pick, you pick one, and they don't know if they're picking to select or remove. So if you have like whatever the mark or the item is that they're supposed to pick, if they pick the wrong one, then that's the one you take away. Versus if they pick the right one, that's the one they get. It's kind of that quick, like sleight of hand.
Yes.
But with things, but yeah.
Exactly. It was my plan all along.
All right. So whenever you're analyzing a work for adaptation, how do you decide which elements you're going to use and which elements are maybe a little too esoteric or just don't quite fit your vision, or how do you decide what gets left on the cutting room floor?
Yeah, how do I decide what to trim, right? Because especially if I'm coming out of a novel, especially something as big as something like Moby Dick, or even Count of Monte Cristo. Those were two of the more recent ones that we did. It's I keep like a running log of notes, like cool NPC names that I want to use, because some of these names that come out of these older works, you're like, I can't make this up. This is amazing. I got to do it. And then quotes that really stand out to me when I'm reading, either because it's like, man, this sounds a lot like Bertram's voice. This sounds like something he would respond to somebody telling him, or it's just, a climactic part of the story. But understanding too that the primary purpose of me using these older stories, these novels specifically, as the mechanism to drive our bigger arc forward, the story of the world of OMAMAM comes first. And so what do I want to do? What is the main goal of this adventure? Is it to steal something? Is it to get somebody back? Is it to find out a piece of intel? But what is the main goal? And then if there's anything from the story that would not help them reach that, don't need it. Then that's okay, because then that could be something where I have it extra kind of on the side in my notes, and then be like, hey, you know what? We have some time. Let's like throw this character in, just as a wacky side thing that maybe is on there for 5 seconds. Or maybe that's something that surprisingly my players really latch onto. I've had that where I just have an NPC that's based off of a side character from the novel that they really latch onto. I'm like, all right, I guess this is going to be a big player now. I guess this is going to be, special guest starring now. And now they have lines. So when I'm deciding what to include and what to detract, I guess it comes down to, does it fit the main narrative of the world that we're building together and the big story? Does it allow any of my 3 characters to develop themselves or explore themselves further? And then lastly, is it something that I remember years after reading that? Is it something that when I have come back to this story and revisited it, that I still remember this moment. I still remember experiencing this or reading it or reacting to it. And so that's more of a subjective, but I want to include that in there too.
Gotcha. Yeah, like in that thread, like certain things, I know Amazon's picked it up, but the whole Wheel of Time series, and there are many aspects of the Wheel of Time that still resonate. Just certain things stick with me. I know I binge read them when I was in college, up until the final 3 because they hadn't come out yet, and you'd have those moments where you wake up and you're still half asleep and your brain's trying to sort out what's memory and what was dream and what's reality and where everything kind of belongs, and those are some kind of fun moments.
It is fun, and I know I'm not going to hit it all, and just being at peace with that, like knowing we only have so much to go. I mean, and it still can last way longer. It's when we were first crafting Frankenstein, the very first one we did, it's like, okay, how many episodes do we think this is gonna go? I don't know, 5 sounds good. You kind of build up, you reach a climax, and you go down, and it turned out to be way more than that. And so then you're like, well, I got more material, let's throw it in. But it's a lot of just keeping track as you read and be like, does this moment remind me of a character? Does this moment make me react emotionally? Or just, is this author a GD poet? And I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. I want to say their words. I want to pretend the words are coming from me. So I gotta say this right now.
So whenever you find a piece that you want to adapt, do you take into account the level that your party is at for when you want to incorporate a story into your narrative? So are there certain works that you find that you're like, this is for a higher level party, so I am going to set this here until they get there? Or do you just say, okay, this is cool, let me make it fit what my party is now so that they can go ahead and get into it?
I think I've done both.
Okay.
I definitely have, like, I'm impatient. I want to do this work now, which is what we did with Moby Dick. It's like that. You're going up against a demon whale. I'm gonna have to scale this baby way down and like include buffed out stats for either certain NPCs or even the ship itself, the pod. But as for some ones that I know are coming down the line, it's more of a this is a grander scale story and it has bigger sweeping themes that either I don't think their characters are ready for yet, lessons to learn or plots to fill in for one another. And so knowing like it's more character based, it's more story driven. They're not there yet for it. But as for encounters, that's still an area I'm reaching as a dungeon master. It's sometimes they'll come in and they're like, oh, my first hit is this many points, and I'm like, I need to add more hit points to my monster. Put a 1 in front of that. Now we're triple digits.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Whereas other times I'm like, oh god, they're being annihilated. All right, let's let's have either like a Tolkien-esque Deus Ex Machina, or at the very least, like give some more aid in what's in the room for them at the moment. But
Let's just take
really
this die out of the damage pool.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? It's like they have these abilities I gave them. Why did you do that? So yeah, exactly. It's like the damage actually is halved. I guess you all have resistance.
You did remember to drink those potions, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
I had to cut that out. Where I'm like, guys, P.S. on the side. I just want to remind you, Kimmy, who plays Penny, you currently have 5 healing potions in your inventory. Yeah. I don't want to have to remind you of that again. Please, for the love of God. And she's like, oh.
You can just like write it on a note paper, hold it up. DM note.
Yeah.
Drink your potions.
I know.
Well, I do remember.
Drink the potions.
I do remember her saying in the most recent episode, I need to remember to write that down.
Oh, I know. It's like, thank you. We've only been playing like a year and a half.
Like, read your items.
Talking as a DM, trying to get that item level or the difficulty level in battle is always hard because like you'll have a warrior or something who decides to blow their action surge and all their points at once, and all of a sudden they're doing like 90 points of damage, and I'm like, well, okay, there's that monster. Just kind of push that one off the side.
I did that in our 1 year anniversary game. We get to the big bad, and I walk up with my 11th level champion fighter, and hit action surge, hit crit hit, and he was down to like 8 hit points at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
how did you even handle that? What did you do?
We had to go. I mean, it was kind of a good and bad thing. We were short on time, so we were trying to pull back because we were trying to keep the session only so long. So there should have been 2 or 3 encounters before they got to the boss to kind of winnow their abilities down a bit. So with that, we just rolled with it, and thankfully everyone got an attack round and got to beat up on the boss a little bit. But then, again, we were short on time, so it worked out really, really well. But yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, great. But I've had times where, again, you talk about, how to move or make modular things, where I've taken small chapters and stuff, and they decide to go left instead of right, and just like, well, okay, that's all gone. Those are some early DM lessons.
Yeah. It definitely have to learn that by trial and error. And sometimes too, in the battles, you're like, I want everyone to feel like they contributed to this. I want everyone to know they killed this guy together. So I want, that's a bit like almost of the DM being like the big sibling, or the just kind of being like, I want you all to feel special.
Yeah, like a giant sheepdog trying to herd cats.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah. That is a very good analogy.
So, do you find certain genres work better for transporting onto the table, or are they all about equal to you? Like short stories versus plays versus novels versus like historical adaptations?
I think format-wise, short stories are the easiest to do because they force you to be more compact. And the authors in short stories they have to choose what they put in there with care. They only have so much room, and so they don't have that, leisure of having like a side arc or, a filler episode, as it were, for it. They have to get the information that's important to the main goal. And that's a great one to start with. As for, I guess poetry would be the hardest, because you're like, well, I'm just getting the essence of this. But some poems, like Alfred Lord Tennyson's Lady of Shalott, like it does tell a story to it, and there is an actual plot to it. But I would say a great starter one, and one that I was able to ease myself and get more comfortable with, were doing short stories. Specifically, just I think it says more about me than anything, so I can't say this objectively. It's totally subjective, but Gothic literature, mwah. Because the monster origins, you have mystery in there, you have sometimes romance, but just like very dark stuff as well built into it, that naturally lends to anything from a dungeon crawl to a murder mystery to just having a creepy dinner party where you're unsure of what's going to happen next. So I would say, for anyone wanting to try this themselves, short stories, especially by Gothic writers, Edgar Allan Poe's a great one to go with. You can't go wrong with that. And that's also how I started too.
Yeah, and another thing is, it's a whole lot easier to read and digest a 10,000 word short story than it is to read and digest a 150,000 word novel.
Very true.
Or more.
Yeah.
Because some of your classical literature, you get out to the 250, 350,000 word count, and like
you're like, and even just how they write too, because these public domain writers, they're naturally going to be older. A lot of them too are from the 1800s, where it was fashionable to be very lyrical and long, and you're like, I just want to know what's happening next. Like, yes, I know the ivy's curling up, like in this monstrous fashion, and is it a snake or is it a piece of ivy? We don't know. So I think that if you start off with short stories, it lends itself very well to translating into a tabletop role-playing game. But here I am too, at the same time, as a hypocrite who, in between each of our stories that we focus on, we have a book report episode, just where we talk about the book that we have featured, and we go a little bit more into behind the scenes for that author and what led to the writing of the story. And Adam always likes to challenge me at the end. He's like, yeah, but why should they read it? And I'm like, now here I am telling you why you should read Moby Dick. Here I am telling you why you should read Count of Monte Cristo, both of which are behemoths. And I mean, I still think you should, but it's more one of those, like, I don't know, stick with it. So it's
the technical term we like to use is cat squisher.
Yeah.
Cat squisher.
Yeah, because if you drop it, it'll squish the cat.
Yeah.
Because of the mass of paper.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. Then I think that's aptly named.
I think that is an East Coast lexicon, because I've only heard it on the East Coast, but I have heard it in school and things like that. But yes,
I didn't on the West Coast. I can bring a little bit of the East Coast lingo into the West Coast classroom.
Admittedly, I didn't hear it until I went to UVA, so deal with that as you will.
Okay.
I don't know that it may be a Jersey thing. I don't know, because there's lots of people from Jersey at UVA. It may be a Nova thing, a Northern Virginia thing. It may be, I don't know.
Probably just a Mid-Atlantic. I don't know.
It could be just generic Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
One thing you did bring up. We need to stop this podcast and look this up now. We need to find the history of cat squisher.
I absolutely love linguistics. That was like, those were such great classes in college.
Yes.
I was going to say that you talked about, the challenges of adapting poetry. A challenge for you. Shel Silverstein.
Oh, my word. Well, I would choose one work. Oh, no, I would not. I would make it okay. Shel Silverstein, which, by the way, best picture on the back cover. Every time I read it to my toddler daughter, I'm like, I'm sorry. This man is creating your dreams and your nightmares.
Kind of looks a little bit like Rasputin.
Yeah. I think it would be good to do it as an anthology then, where you would bring in different tidbits of, characters or ideas or images from them, and then maybe have them each as, if you want to just do like the classic one where it's just like each room is a different poem. Each one can be like a riddle related to the poem or a puzzle.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And then they move through, and then at the very end, I don't know, they get the last golden apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea, but yeah, that would be interesting. I think if I were to, I haven't tackled poetry yet, honestly haven't, and so if I were to do that, it might be more on the anthological side of taking several works by the same writer.
Okay, so is there a piece that you would love to adapt for the show, but you can't because it's not in public domain yet?
2.
Okay.
One of which is a short story by Shirley Jackson. It's called The Lottery. And just the premise of this is it builds up into that, through that dramatic irony of you start to realize more and more exactly what is coming at the very end. And so if you had an adventure where your characters were captured, maybe it's just like a kind of a side one shot, but they were captured and they were put into a lottery, but they don't know what it is, and it's more of like an escape within a certain amount of time. That would be very, very fun. I don't want to give away any more than that. Please go read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson.
That is a great story.
The twist is the best part. And then for something more long form, I would love if I could do something like Cormac McCarthy's The Road.
Oh yeah,
more.
That is grim.
And
I
told you I love I tend to draw from dark romance, gothic literature, so yeah, it fits. But yeah, just something more apocalyptic and a lot of great encounters along the way, and still very unclear who the enemy is, and there's a lot of great moments for introspection for your own characters and decisions to make where there really is no right decision. Would be fun.
So I could see that. I could also go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so fun fact, I had The Road sitting on my bookshelf for a while, and after my daughter was born, I decided, what, I'm just going to start working through my bookshelf because they've moved through 3 apartments and now into this house. I'm going to read through some of these.
Gosh,
and so this is, my daughter is like 5 months old at this point, and I have it with me, and I'm reading it in my car on my lunch break at work. And I get to the end of it, and I'm like, this was a good book. This was not the right time for me to read this book.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, wait, you have a new kid? Oh, no.
Like, this was not the right time for me to read this book. and I told my wife as much because she hasn't read it yet. I'm like, you're not ready for this.
Yeah. There's some stuff I've had to put off, too. Since my daughter's now 2, and we're expecting another one here any week now. But it is... Yeah, it's just like I'm gonna put myself into these shoes too much, and I'm gonna look at my child with trauma.
Especially, you know what scene I'm talking about near the end.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not gonna say any more than that, but if you ever
start calling her the girl or daughter, and that's it. I can't say her name anymore.
I'm gonna have to add this to my reading list. I haven't.
Do.
Yes, it was really, really good.
I think I have an Audible credit coming up, so yeah, that's gonna be.
Yay! Yeah, please.
Yeah, I love Audible. That's made. With my you get older, your vision kind of goes wonky, and then you have to do a bunch of stuff. But like my commutes or different things like that, audiobooks are just a blessing.
Audible, absolutely, if you want to sponsor us, and
you're
listening, Mr. Audible. Yeah.
I was thinking another one that would be a really, not in the public domain, but would be a really interesting, it would be a hard one to do, would be The Stand, especially with everything going on right now. But there would be a lot of opportunity for roleplay through that.
Ooh, especially if you're looking at, which I do look at tabletop role-playing games as a chance for your players to work through stuff they're going through in their own lives. And to, kind of at a safe distance, use their character and use that persona to work through the hard emotions and to
Oh,
relate to
absolutely.
real life. Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be great for that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Last one of our prepared questions. What would you say is the most important thing to consider for a DM adapting a story to a table?
Your player characters. I think because I believe the strongest stories that can land on the table are those that are character driven. And so if you have the chance to know what your players specifically want to get out of it, but then how they've crafted their player characters' backstories a little bit, and you can find existing public domain works that match that, it's going to be very rewarding and they'll open up way more. So I think starting off with that, knowing who you're sharing this table with and that they are creating this world with you, that you want the stories to reflect them as well.
No, that's really, really solid advice. Because again, it is the player's story. You are the DM, but it really is the player's story when it comes down to it. So no, that is fantastic advice.
Thank you.
All right. So we had tossed up an idea about maybe taking a specific piece of literature and just doing a very bare bones sort of
Totally.
outline on how we might adapt it.
Mm-hmm.
The piece I suggested was actually Great Gatsby.
I know.
Which
Which still do that without giving things away.
Right. And what we come up with may be completely different than what you end up going with in the show.
No. So no spoilies anyway.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And of course, I suggest this and then find out whenever I'm doing troubleshooting with James this afternoon that he hasn't actually read it.
Yeah, no, that's as much as I've read. I focused more on fantasy and pulp sci-fi growing up, and for some reason, we skipped that one in high school. So like some other classes had to read it, but I never had. I read Fahrenheit 451 like 6 different times in school. Never got to read Great Gatsby. So there you are.
I was about to say, I was like, you were in the one high school in America that didn't make you read Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Typically, they're like, you got to read this. Typically,
Yeah.
junior year, right, for U.S. literature, they have that as like the core piece of literature.
It was sophomore year for me, but yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of just depends on everyone.
Everybody made me read 450. I'm like, I've read it. I'll read it again. No, you don't understand. I've read this 3 times. We'll read it again.
I know.
All right.
Fine. I'll show up. Here we are. Please tell me what Montag does. Yeah, so if I were to take, well, I am, but in this case, in our scenario that we're creating, if I were to take something like The Great Gatsby, I would want to know first for my player characters and the world we've already started building there, what is one of the big goals that we would have? And then how can I fit that goal into the big plot points of The Great Gatsby? So when people are reading, kind of if we were to make a Pinterest board for Great Gatsby, we would know it's the roaring 20s. We would know this is a guy who throws huge parties, but he's also, in organized crime. We would know that there are...
We think. It is never explicitly stated that he is part of organized crime. He is accused of being a bootlegger.
Okay, that's fine. Chicago's calling. We got a wire from Chicago that we're keeping open. Anyways, by the way, you guys, it's almost sickening, but I take nothing but utter delight in it. I mean, this is a book since I've taught for 12 years, and I have taught multiple periods in a year of juniors, which is what my school does for Great Gatsby. I've read this book over 20 times. So, this is definitely one of those I'm like, I don't have to really reread it for this. I kind of know it. But you know, like, okay, who are the main players here? Well, I got to get, the narrator. I have to have, the guy that this all is named after, Jay Gatsby. And then if I want to have shady characters at the party, great. They have plenty of those, coming through the window in in this story. And then what I personally would kind of knock out is some people look at the romantic part of this, where the title character wants to get with somebody else, and will they, won't they, do they even love each other? That's not as important to me for the world I'm building, but maybe it is. So it's like, do I even want to include this element? Does this potential romance that's in the story even have anything to do with what my characters are trying to do or not? So maybe I just want them to be at one of his parties. Maybe I want them to be in a version of New York, just the NYC or Manhattan areas. Maybe I want them to be in a speakeasy, and this is where it happens. So I would choose one or two big scenes that happen in the novel and then use those as my big settings for my characters.
So from what you guys have mentioned, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
So from what you guys have mentioned, again, I've seen the movie with DiCaprio forever ago. I watched it once, and
Okay.
I haven't read the book. But so what I would picture at this point would be like maybe an elven or a fey bacchanalia, and have that big kind of, because you have those shady characters, so that the fey and the elves would fade in and out real there. They'd have the big party, so again, probably like a druid grove or something like that, where you'd have just kind of everybody coming in, and then you could use that as your point and have whatever your plot tip would be from there, and just kind of.
Totally. Yeah. And so if that's, if I choose a party, then something that is a goal for my characters needs to happen at this party. Do they want to find a person? Do they want to drop intel? Do they want to buy something that's a little less than legal? So figure out kind of what are one or two motives that they have for coming to this party, and go with that. There are two main chapters in Great Gatsby. It's a shorter work too, which is great to do. There's only 9 chapters in it. And so I would choose, the chapters that focus in on the party if I'm going there, and utilize a lot of those descriptions and bring people in. And the cool thing is, whenever you choose any work that has a party in it, you can bring in characters from other pieces of literature.
Oh, absolutely,
who else
yeah.
would be at this party that maybe... Or if this is part of a long-standing campaign for your characters, like, are there previous NPCs that they've had experiences with that can make a resurgence that would all of a sudden be there? Well, why are they there? So I would go from there and then figure out what is the tone. Do I want this to be a mystery? Do I want this to just be like a silly comedic slapstick, anything goes? Do I want this to become a murder mystery? Do I want this to be a romance? And then also add in those elements.
I was going to point out that you could have that murder mystery element because of the pivotal event that leads into the very end of the book. Where someone runs over someone else in someone else's car.
And have a little bit of a whodunit there.
Yeah.
Or you just have someone say, "Hi, I'm the American Dream," and then later they're dead.
That's too real. We can't do that.
Yeah, that's too
well, then it becomes a therapy session. Then you're like, all right, our theme for today is getting it out.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I was thinking about it, there were 2 major settings that I was thinking about that would lend themselves well to the Great Gatsby. One being sort of a Feywild, fairy setting, and the other one being Eberron.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because Eberron has that little bit of a grungy Magitech, almost steampunk, kind of transitioning into diesel punk sort of feel. And so it has the atmosphere there for all of the things that happen, because we are in the Roaring 20s. It is the beginning of the real big urbanization of America.
It was all about being modern.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so just the Eberron setting in and of itself really lends itself well to that. And because you can have a whole lot of urban encounters and urban environments in an Eberron setting, because there are a lot of cities, it just seemed to me to be something that would meld pretty well.
No, that would fit really well, especially if you start throwing in like speakeasies or things like that. That would be a great fit.
Oh, and a great chance for just some fun side detail homebrew. I mean, if this is also, since this is the era of prohibition, so people weren't allowed to sell and distribute alcohol, well, what would be the version of bootlegging in this world? You know, what would be not allowed that you could come up with? Or even if you're going to go with potables, then, you know, you could find some cool homebrew brews and have certain effects for your characters. They can roll through it, or they can role play it.
Or just make
spirits. Yeah.
Or just make all potions illicit goods.
Yes, that would be. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and definitely look up there's some cool charts on inebriation that you can find and its effects, and you're like, no,
Yes.
you guys are gonna be inebriated and you're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, we actually
make some con rolls.
we actually a while back did a drinking games, several different drinking games, and we put our own special home inebriation rules into that. So
yeah.
Can I ask you guys to send that to me? I would love
absolutely,
to see that.
absolutely.
I have a couple players that are more than happy to always play inebriated, like
I
their
think,
characters be inebriated. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I think Drink Smash is the one of them. And then,
yes, Drink Smash is one of them. So the general gist of it is, you know, you have two people with a drink. They both roll a con check. The person with the higher con check wins the whole initiative for the round. Okay. So what you do is you slam your drink and then you punch your opponent. And the game ends when one person's unconscious. either because they got beaten unconscious or because they passed out drunk.
Drunk themselves under the table. Oh, and then the party moves on. You're like, well, here's your dreamscape.
So yeah. But yeah, that was one of James's.
Send me ideas like this. If it does happen to make its way into the world of Gatsby at his party, I will gladly give you guys the credit you deserve for that.
Hey, excellent. All right, yeah. All right, so I think that pretty well wraps up the interview portion tonight. One of the things we like to do with our guests is roll on our monster mashup table and come up with a creature on the fly. Just something completely original, powered by chaos. So if you are game and you have some dice...
I do.
Right.
I have my physical die with me.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started with a D4 roll. This is its mode of locomotion.
Okay. 4, baby.
It swims.
We get a lot of swimming critters.
It's because everyone waits their D4s to land on a 4.
Yeah.
It's the best you can get in that moment. You're like, it's all I
have. You almost deal more damage with the die than you do with whatever you're rolling for.
Oh my gosh, have you ever stepped on one?
No, thankfully.
So short aside, I got a set of the ceramic dice from Clay Warforged from Fighting Chance Studios for Christmas. And
nice.
he uses the pendant D4s, the ones that are sort of an oblong shape, and so you roll them and they roll sideways. Mm-hmm. So they got the 4 faces. Yeah. So it's less hazardous to your health if you step on it.
I know, because these babies, man, it's like this or Legos. Ugh. Don't have them around.
I would rather step on a Lego. You know,
okay,
I grew up with Legos. I had huge bins of Legos, and I would step into them when I was digging around because they were that big. I would rather step on a Lego.
You're like, my feet are adjusted for this.
It's kind of like the Mystic Firewalking.
Kind of. All right, so next roll is a D6 roll for what does it eat?
Come on, poop. 5.
5, it eats living flesh.
Oh my.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, we can work with a lot. Living flesh is broad enough that you can work with that.
Yeah.
All right. Next is a D8 for size.
Okay. 1.
It is diminutive.
Oh, a little guy in the water that eats flesh. I'm just.
I like it.
He's gonna fit in a toilet bowl.
What about those little blue ring octopi?
No, they're poisonous. That's what
they're poisonous. They're also tiny too.
Yeah, they. I think they would be tiny. I don't think they would be diminutive, but
okay.
We're talking like cockroach sized with diminutive.
Okay. Six in the palm of your hand.
Yep.
Oh.
Weird, like, giant sand
Actually,
mouse.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. And now that I think about it, one of the blue ring octopi would fit into a diminutive category because tiny is like a house cat. So yeah.
I always kind of wanted an
the
octopus familiar
spaces
so
they
you
can
could, like,
fit into.
yeah.
Those guys, I mean, they'll just squish. They're like, you want me to be the size of a teacup? I'll show you.
I think an octopus familiar would be fun too, because just when in doubt, octopus to the face and just kind of chuck it.
All right.
Also, just like
Next up is another D8 roll for social organization.
oh. 3.
3. Brood. So one parent plus young.
Okay. Trying to think. So we've got, I don't know, still lending itself to octopi or maybe like a saltwater piranha or even freshwater piranha, honestly. Something that eats flesh. So yeah, we're still seeing like.
But
Still
remember,
seeing the realm of possibilities.
But remember, we have established this before. Swims does not necessarily mean water.
This is true. What if it's like the fish they use for like the spa treatments where you stick and they eat all the dead skin off your feet?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that could be fun. Yeah, but we're gonna get a lot off of this next one. This is a new one because this is ever evolving. A D10 roll.
As our critters do.
A D10 roll for native environment.
Oh, nice.
Okay, yeah, this is going to tell us a lot. 7.
7. It lives in the hills.
Okay. There's there's liquid up and then there are hills.
Yeah, I mean, there's mountain streams and whatnot.
Small snapping turtle.
You're angry boy. You're just a little angry boy.
I'm just getting flashbacks to the necrograde.
Yes. Oh, that went so sideways.
Yeah, that went. Yeah, that was an experience. Let me tell you. So basically, it was genetically modified tardigrades. That had spines that they could fire out, but they acted like grappling hooks. And
to draw you in?
No, to draw themselves to you.
Oh.
And they went into orifices.
These things are like tiny, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the Amazon, there's a creature called the vampire fish that will sense urine and swim upstream, and they've got barbed gills, so they will swim into an orifice, then flare their gills and wedge themselves in, so they can live off of the X-flow and the blood and stuff like that, and they have to be surgically removed often.
How did they start?
I
How
have
did
no
those guys start?
I have no idea.
Hi, over this.
Because someone angered the gods is what it was.
Yes.
These are divine punishment for someone.
Yes.
Seriously, some of them are like, you are a scourge. Like, this isn't you just surviving. You are angry.
Okay, so next up is a D12 roll for method of defense.
Okay. 4.
4 has a stinger.
I mean,
All right.
kind of makes sense. Especially, can it be a stinger that goes both ways? Out in it. Could you also suck through it? I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, they were like a proboscis. Yeah.
Proboscis.
Ooh, it's a stabby boy.
Yeah. So it's like a water strider maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
God, everything tonight, you guys. I'm just really feeling like going out on the water now. I'm feeling like it's a good day.
Go
in LA. I'm gonna drive down to the beach.
Drive up into the hills and find myself this nice little secluded pond and go fishing.
One of those dark water ponds you can't see the bottom of.
Yeah. we're gonna go up to the swimming hole and go skinny dipping. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
It's nightmare fuel.
Just close your eyes, guys. Just close your eyes. It'll be over.
Oh my.
All right. All right, next up is going to be a D20 roll for quirks.
Oh, I love these. All right. 1.
1. Okay, so we're going a little more ant here because it can lift 20 times its body weight.
I mean, if it needs to carry the corpse somewhere to eat later, yeah, you
Yeah.
kind of need to do that.
I could see that, yeah. And you're underwater, so that's going to help with some buoyancy and weight distribution, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you already have that. Imagine how big you can go then.
Yeah, so it's going to be feeding on things like minnows or frogs,
Mm-hmm.
or
It's
even,
like a tiny, like crayfish.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Or anything that stumbles in there.
It's almost like mosquito larvae just scaled up a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Ooh,
Or like
yeah,
caddisflies, maybe that sort of thing.
It sounds like you guys are sticking true to our world, and I think that's really helpful.
Oh, you are. I mean, when we get done, you are more than welcome to use whatever it is.
Like this thing drank in a mosquito larva that maybe got a little bit too big. Just maybe it had a sip of enlarged potion.
Yeah. It's the worm from the bottom of the tequila bottle.
Oh my.
It's been there this whole time. Just waiting.
There is no more tequila.
There's
just a bottle-sized worm.
Bottle just staring out. It's my turn.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is going to be where the final touches come on, because now we get to make it weird.
Okay. Because, I mean, this boy's getting weird already, so yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to where we're going.
So give me a D100 roll.
Okay. 81.
81. You would have to pick something at the bottom of the list when I don't have a mouse on the laptop. 81 possesses bones/horns/carapace that resonate with a perfect pitch when struck.
Okay.
No, I like this. I'm still going with the tequila worm thing. Maybe it resonates with the bottle.
Okay.
Ooh,
So whenever it gets threatened, it resonates with this pitch and it shatters the bottle.
Okay.
And it can only happen when the bottle is empty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they become these sort of like biological frag grenades.
Okay. This definitely sounds like an orcish drink. Like this would be something that you'd find in an orc bar.
And like then you could totally it becomes a drinking game, So
yeah, you slam the bottle, you chug the bottle, then you slam it on the table, and then whatever, it explodes, and that's the whole.
it's like orcish roulette.
Yes.
It is, and you think you're done playing the game, but no, it's only just begun.
Or it's one of those things where it's just sort of a time bomb because you're just waiting until it starts to resonate. Because maybe this is one of those things. Maybe this is one of those where in a natural environment it would encase itself in pebbles and such like caddisfly larvae do, but they learned that whenever it reaches that pupating stage or whenever it's turning into an adult, it resonates this frequency to shed off that sort of carapace layer, and that it just happens to be the right frequency to shatter glass. And so they take them and they drop them in the bottles for this purpose.
Oh,
okay.
That's great. And since you said earlier the defense mechanism is a stinger, if one of those remains, one of the pieces of carapace remains, or one of the things, and it turns into a stinger, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a mild toxin like in the Middle East and stuff, where they sit there and they'll handle the scorpions to get stung, so they get the mild buzz off the scorpion venom.
Oh,
they can add that in with the drink.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's drinking the worm sloshes up and it's stinging you while you're drinking it.
Yeah, who needs Goldschlager? You don't need little pieces of gold like
it's got some extra bite.
You down and open it up. You got this guy.
Well, I mean, it's like the putting snake venom in the whiskey.
Exactly.
that sort of thing.
You guys are. I like where we're going with this.
All right, so
And this will all appear in Great Gatsby at the.
Woohoo!
oh yeah, because we're having a party.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm having a party. So I gotta have
All
three.
right, yeah. All right, so we got one. We're gonna do one more. Make it weird. Let's see what we get. 94.
Oh, okay, you're going even lower on the list than I did. So.
Yeah, but I'm already
Scrolling.
scrolled down now.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. Comes from an alien world and doesn't adhere to normal biology, which explains why it can swim around in tequila and not die.
I like it.
It just breathes in. It's like there's something in
Yes.
the tequila it breathes in. I am seeing so much like a mini version of those face grabbers from the Alien.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
You drink it, it drinks you.
yes. Don't be the last one. You do not want that.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be the game. You got to take a drink and then slam it down, and then you pass it, and that's how you do the whole Russian roulette thing, or the orchestra roulette is whoever sets it off. And then, of course, once it's out, it's going to eat living flesh, so it's going to latch on whoever, like, with the bottle breaks, it's going to break in their hand, and it's just going to latch on whatever's close.
Social contract. They knew going into this.
That's right.
Sat down for this. They knew.
All
I
right.
love it.
So just to recap on what we got. All right, it swims, which it can apparently swim in liquor. So that's a thing.
It's quicker than liquor. Yep.
It eats living flesh. It is diminutive in size. Its social organization is a brood, so a parent plus its young. It lives in the hills. It has a stinger for defense. It can lift 20 times its body weight. It possesses a carapace that resonates with a perfect pitch when struck. And it comes from an alien world and does not adhere to normal biology. So what are we going to call it?
I like Orkschlager.
Yes. How did you hit that with the first one?
Because you had mentioned Goldschlager, and we talked about orc drinking games, and that kind of just...
I know, but the punniness, like, mwah to you. It's a little chef's
Thank
kiss.
you.
You have to realize that this is a lightning strike event because James is usually the one that says he's no good with names.
Yeah, I'm terrible at naming things normally.
I don't believe you, man. You're 1 for 1 with me. You got that.
All right, so that was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I love doing those.
Yeah,
I'm remembering this, so
yeah. This is the best part of the interview episodes. Really, getting to roll on the table and come up with crazy things.
yeah, you get to create something together and just see where it goes.
Yeah. So another thing that we like to do whenever we have a guest on is to have them give a shout out to someone else in the TTRPG community. You know, a podcaster, a content creator, artists, musicians, whatever. Who would you like to give a shout out for today?
I mean,
You can do more than one.
Amazing. Okay, yeah. This community has been amazing. Sometimes we're like, we feel like a garage band. Like, you know, we're doing this and we come on and we see so many wonderful people in this community, and it's been just really, I don't know, open, especially for those who are just working together to create small things together. And it's been really supportive. The first two, I would say one of them that I really enjoy is 19 Hits the Dragon.
Yeah, Mike is great people.
They are
They
awesome.
are. They've been, I don't know, they were one of the very friendly ones that we first got to know.
Yeah,
when
we
came on
actually
Twitter.
just did an off-stream game with Mike from 19 Hits the Dragon and Matt and Eric from Goblin's Corner.
Oh, which
Yeah.
also another great one, Goblin's Corner.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good duo there, you guys. So yeah, I know their handle is like at 19 Hits the Dragon. Like their handle matches their name. But yeah, I really appreciate just how they're going in there, and much like you guys, just the things that you guys talk about on here, both homebrew and things that come straight from the pages of, you know, the manual. It's still so helpful, even for people who've been playing 9 days, 9 months, 9 years, you know, plus it has been very, very helpful gaining ideas from you guys and even what I listen to on 19 Hits the Dragon, when I've been able to just like listen in for some ideas. So that's been helpful. And so something that we regularly do on our show is we invite people to do guest spots, where I will pull in a quote from the work that we're doing, and just like as just flavor, you're walking through the hall and you overhear this conversation, or in a recent one you open up an invite and hear somebody inviting you to a party at Great Gatsby's mansion. And so the very first person who agreed to do this for us was Wilbo Baggins. So at Hey What's Up Wilbo, and just it was fun because we'd never done it before. We're like, hey, would you be willing to like read this bit of Shakespeare and just do whatever you want? And he really quickly got very comfortable with getting weird with it and having fun and going over the top, and that kind of set the tone for how we would ask other people to jump on too and try it out. So I don't know, infinite love for the guy, and very kind, and really he's come onto the tabletop role-playing game universe from so many angles. So yeah, sending him love too.
All right.
Good deal.
Right. Yeah. And last but not least, go ahead and plug you. Where can we find you and your stuff? Because we're not going to invite you on and not let you plug what you're selling.
You don't want to be just like go into the darkness. You're like, who was that girl? Gotta find out. So my name is Kate, and I am the dungeon master, or as like we like to say, the master teacher for Of Mice and Men and Monsters, which is an actual play podcast for homebrew Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of 5e rules. But we use it through the lens of coming through the worlds of classic literature, things that are in public domain. And so we release every other week. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. The list of all the places we're on that. And yeah, there's a group of 4 of us. 2 of our friends do this with us, and then my husband and I are the producers. So I do the front end, the creating, and a lot of the marketing. And then my husband, Adam, who plays Bertram on the show, he does the back end, the editing, and the uploading. So it's been really this fun labor of love, much like you guys do, of just getting to do what you love and make this a hobby that, I don't know, you get excited to do. It doesn't feel like, I don't know, it's not a slog. It's just something that you get to feed that part of yourself that you don't always get to on a regular daily basis.
I don't know. I'm gonna hazard to speak for Adam for a minute, because sometimes editing does feel like a slog.
Oh yeah, I get that, and I think he has the hardest job. I do not want that one, but yeah, thanks to him, like I'm able to listen to it and like I don't know, get proud enough to like shed a tear of like, wow, we made this. But anyways, you can find us on Twitter as well as on Instagram. Our handle is at OMAMAM Show. We technically have a TikTok, but we're not really on that too much. But it's the same handle, at OMAMAM Show. And yeah, we invite you, come on in and see all the weird and listen to all the stories and get ideas for yourselves as well.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, well, Kate, thank you so very much for joining us for this episode of Undercommon Taste. It was wonderful to have you on.
It's been a ton of
fun. I like talking to you. Let's do this again.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening today. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email at undercommontaste@gmail.com, or send us a direct message through our Twitter account at UCT Homebrew. We couldn't get Undercommon Taste because that was too many characters. I tried. I didn't want Undercommon Taste. Okay.
Oh.
No. It doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
Not so much.
Yeah. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Undercommon Taste. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/Undercommon Taste. So if you want to help support the show financially, come over there and consider becoming a patron. That's also where we post all of our write-ups for all of the creatures and mechanical systems and stuff that we come up with on the show. We are also on Discord. You'll find the link to our Discord channel in the show notes.
Yes. You can find our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google, Spotify. always, please give us a rate and a review. It helps increase our visibility and it lets us know what you want to hear more of.
Do it. It's good for us, guys.
It really is.
And also, just an aside, as we were talking about Drink Smash, you'll find that on our Patreon as well.
Yeah.
It's right up Swing Wink.
And Spotify now has a system where you can actually give star ratings to podcasts. So please go, if you use Spotify, please go and give us a rating on Spotify, because that also helps a lot.
Yes.
It's a literal, it's a drop down, you push on it and then you click how many stars and then you're done. It's 2 clicks and you're done. It's amazing.
1 click, 2 click.
Red click, blue click?
Yes.
So thank you everyone for joining us. Stay safe. We'll see you again next week.
Happy
Bye,
gaming.
guys.